All right. Good morning, everybody. I see the record light is on and I'm unmuted, so it's time to me. I believe we left off. We got to the top, to the Mishnah of Kuf Mem Gimel Amad Aleph. So we got to the Mishnah there. Mishnah says, "Beisham yoimrim ma'avirin me'al hashulchan atzamais v'klipin." Beisham says you're allowed to go ahead and remove from upon the table and shells. So you can go ahead and move them. They're not muksa. You can move them. And Beis Hillel misalik as a tavla kula umanara. You go ahead. You basically take the table and you move it, and then you sort of shake the table off, and then the shells and bones come up because they're muksa. Because why? Before Shabbos they were attached to food. The food was fit to be eaten by a human. Once it was consumed, right? Once it was eaten, then you have the leftovers. Now that's not fit for anything, right? You can't feed it to animals, right? You can't feed it to anybody, and therefore there's no use. So therefore it's muksa. So machlokes is between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai says you can move it, and Beis Hillel says you cannot move it. We'll actually see in the Gemara an explanation of this machlokes. Now, next case, Mavirin may. I think where's the Aleph? The Bach, right, changes the me'lifnei to me'al, right? So he says, Mavir me'al hashulchan, perurin, pachas me'kazayis. So he says, the next halacha, you're allowed to go ahead and remove from the table crumbs that are less than a kazayis, because that's no longer food eaten by a person that's too small. Vesar shel afunin, veser adashim, and also the pods of peas or of lentils, mipneishu ma'echel behema. Because those are ma'achal behema, since it's fit to be fed to an animal, right? And animals to feed animal food is not muksa. So therefore, you're allowed to go ahead and move these. You got to go ahead and move the crumbs or move the pods and feed them and remove them from the table. Now, safug, a sponge, im yeshlo or a beis achiza, if it has a leather handle or some sort of handle, then you go ahead and use it because you're not squeezing the sponge and squeezing out. However, im lav, but if not, if you have to grab the sponge, so by you grabbing the sponge, you're actually squeezing out. That is the problem of schita, right? Schita is a talada, as machlokes says it was a talada, if it's a talada of dash, right? From extracting it out. V'im lav, but if not, then but if there is no handle, then you can't go ahead and use it. And benkach or benkach nitel b'Shabbos. Either way, whether it has a handle or not, it's nitel b'Shabbos. It's not muksa, ve'ein makabel tuma. But it's not makabel tuma. It's not considered to be something which is makabel tuma, which is normally reserved for something which is a kliyetz. And it's not a baguette, it's not a sock, it's not metal. So therefore, it doesn't fall into the categories. Therefore, it is not makabel tuma like a utensil or like a garment. So let's see the Gemara. So the first case was we're talking about the bones or the shells from food, which are no longer able to animals. So Amar Rav Nachman, Anu ein lanu ela beis Shammai k'Rabbi Yehuda u'beis Hillel k'Rabbi Shimon. They have. The way they're taught this machlokes is actually opposite of what we have. We have Beis Shammai is the one who's makil, right? Now the makil one over here would be go according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon when it comes to a muksa, and Rabbi Yehuda and the Machmer want to be according to Rabbi Yehuda. It actually flip flops it, and Beis Hillel is the makil one. Beis Hillel's one says you remove it. He holds like like Rabbi Shimon, and Beis Shammai holds like Rabbi Yehuda, whose Machmer says no, you have to take the whole table and just shake it off indirectly, remove it, and that's the only way you can do it. And then we said, Mavir me'al hashulchan perurin, you can go ahead and move it with the crumbs. So Masala Rabbi Yechanan, Puz Rabbi Yechanan, perurin shein b'em kazayis asur lav dam biyad. Even crumbs that are smaller, even despite the fact that they're smaller than a kazayis, it's still considered food. You can't go ahead and just destroy it and throw it away and discard it, directly. So therefore, by the fact that you're allowed to remove it, you're not destroying it right by hand, but rather you're cleaning them off. And Sar shel afunin, and then we said the pods of lentils, of peas, right? So money. Whose opinion is this? Rabbi Shimon, the less lay muksa. This must be according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, right? Who holds that even though the pods, they were first, initially they were fit for food, right? Pea pods, right? And then once you ate the peas, they were just the pods, so therefore they can't really be eaten by a human. They could only be eaten by animals. So according to Rabbi Shimon, who said is makil when it comes to Shabbos, so according to him, it's not muksa, and that's the opinion of our Mishnah. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's still a muksa. So Ema Sefer, let's look at the Sefer. Sefer says, Safuk im yesh bo beis achiza mekana chibav, im lav im mekana chibav. Right? So it's a sponge, right? If it has a handle, you can use it because you're not squeezing it with your hand. But if not, then you can't go ahead and squeeze it. So, however, that's Aslan Rabbi Yehuda. That seems to go according to Rabbi Yehuda. Davar Shem is Kavin is Aser. That Lechor would only seem to call Davar Shem is Kavin, right? When you hold the sponge and you're squeezing it in order to clean, right? And you're squeezing out liquids, so you're unintentionally squeezing it out. So that's called Davar Shevis Kavein, and only according to Rabbi Yehuda, Davar Shevis Kavein is Aser. According to Rabbi Shimon, it's Mutter. So this part seems to go according to Rabbi Yehuda, and the other part seems to be going according to Rabbi Shimon. So the Gemara says, no, I feel Rabbi Shimon might that. No, even Rabbi Shimon would be mud in this case. Abaye v'Rava, Daran Tavai, both Abaye and Rava both agree. Might Rabbi Shimon that Rabbi Shimon would agree if something would automatically happen. It's like those are now his intentions, and therefore even Rabbi Shimon would agree that a sponge without a handle would be Aser. And Hani, Garin, the Tamri, Armasi, Sharla Tatlanu. These, I guess, the pits of dates, this Armenian dates, they're permitted to move on Shabbos, right? Now, even though the date part was removed and just the pits are remaining, these dates were actually sort of gross. And since they were sort of gross, they were not eaten by people, they're actually eaten by animals. So therefore, when the fruit was removed, and it was just the pit was left, it was still animal feed. So therefore, it never changes status. If something was animal feed before Shabbos, therefore it's animal feed on Shabbos. Therefore, it doesn't change its status. Therefore, it's not muksa. However, since they were mutter because of it means their mother, but because of the fruit that was on them. However, that which was of Persian dates, since those are edible by humans, usr. Those are usr. Why? Because in the beginning, before Shabbos started, since these dates were fit for humans, now it's only fit for animals. So therefore, since it wasn't prepared for animals from before Shabbos, therefore, according to the more machmer pina of muksa, therefore it would be muksa. And Shmuel metalta lahu agav rifta, right? And Shmuel used to actually go ahead and move it basically on bread. In other words, basically he would have these pits after he would eat the pits, right? So the pits are muksa, right? So he would basically sort of spit it out or put it on a bread, and then he'd move the bread and then move the pit that way. And Shmuel goes to Shmuel, a person's allowed to go ahead and use bread for other reasons. Obviously, you can't go ahead and make bread disgusting, but if he wants to go ahead and perhaps maybe put the pit on it and then move the bread and pour it that way, that would be okay. And Rabbi Matalta Lahu Agav Lakana Damaya. So Rabbi used to go ahead and basically after he would eat the pits, he would spit the pits in like a bucket of water, and then at the end we have a bunch of pits. He would go ahead and move the bucket of water. And Rav Huna Bered Rav Yeshua Avilek Graf Sharei, he basically make like a plate and have all these the seeds or the shells or pits or whatever it is, and big disgusting plates of it, right? And therefore, since it's gross, you're allowed to go ahead and move gross things on Shabbos, and therefore he was able to go ahead and move it. It was not a problem with muksa. So I'm really Rav Ashi the Meimer. Can a person go ahead and make something which is gross and disgusting lechatchila? So really, he shouldn't do that way. And Rav Sheshes Zarek Lu Belishne, Rav Sheshes used to go ahead and move it, I guess, the pits with his tongue, i.e., he would spit it out. Rav Papa Zarek Lu Achrei Hamita. I guess he would also, toss it behind his bed so it wouldn't be in the way on Shabbos. Rabbi Zechariah ben Avkulus. So said Rabbi Zechariah ben Avkulus, Shahaya Machzir Panav Achrei Hamita V'Zarka. He used to go ahead and basically turn around, behind his bed or whatever, and spit him out behind him. And that way he would not leave him let's say on the table, because those would be muksa. So therefore he would get, he would throw, discard them in a different way without moving them with his hand. He would just sort of spit them out behind the bed. So Hadrach Noitel Adam Es Bino Mazel Tov. Right? Now we finished the 21st parak. Now, Mitzvah Hashem, we'll go ahead and start with the next parak, right? 22nd parak. I think it's 24 paraktim. So Mishnah says, Naya Mishnah, Naya parak, Chavis Shanishbara, a barrel that is broken, right? We've seen this concept, Matzilin, Haimena, Mazon, Shalosh Sudos. So you can go ahead and take from there the enough to drink for 3 meals. For 3 meals, enough for 3 meals. You're not allowed to go ahead and save more. If you allow them to save more, a person might come go ahead and fix it. If you have one kli, you can go ahead and actually put as much as you want in that kli. But if you're bringing multiple kelim to go ahead and save, you can only save for 3 meals. And you can tell others, hey, come get yourselves 3 meals for you guys each. However, condition you should not go ahead and sponge it and squeeze it because it might come to do schita. Now, speaking of schita, which we're going to discuss today, schita is squeezing, right? Extracting the juice from something. You can't go ahead and squeeze fruits on Shabbos to extract from them the liquids, right? You can't, if apple juice, orange juice, you can't go ahead and squeeze out grape juice. If they come out on their own, asurin, then they're usur. Why? Because if they come out their own, and I was just sitting there, and over time, I guess the juice will start coming out. So then people might, since I wanted the juice and I want a little more, they might squeeze themselves. So since we say, even if it comes out itself, it's usur, so therefore people won't go ahead and start to squeeze them out themselves. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, im lo eichlan. So now Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it makes a difference. Im lo eichlan, if these fruits were sitting in your house and they're for the purpose of eating, then the juice that comes from it is mutter, because we're not going to assume you go ahead and squeeze more because he didn't want the juice to come from them in the first place. So therefore it's mutter. However, but if you're saving the fruits because eventually you want to go ahead and squeeze them, and some of the juice started coming out, so then you might go ahead and squeeze more, then hayetz men is asur. Then anything that comes from it is asur. And finally, last case, chalus davash, you have the honeycombs. I guess they're cut from Erev Shabbos. The yatzim yatzon, and then they started coming out on their own on Shabbos. Asur, and that honey, I guess that comes out from them is asur. The Rabbi Eliezer matter. Rabbi Eliezer's matter, the honey that comes out, if it was cut before Shabbos, we'll have to explain the machlokes later on. Fine. Let's see the Gemara. So Tana, lo yisbog b'yan lo yitach b'shemen lo v'shalayase kadechshu oise b'chol. You shouldn't go ahead and sponge up and squeeze up the wine, and also not go ahead and gather the oil, I guess, in your hands. I guess put in the palm of your hand, because you shouldn't. Once again, it's asering uvda the chol. It's asering. We want to go ahead and make you behave a different way on Shabbos. So therefore, since this is done during the week, that's not how we want you to go ahead and act at Shabbos. Therefore, you can go ahead and collect it in your hand, the oil, and then drop it back in the bucket on Shabbos. Speaking of uta the chol, these parzoloi peros bechatzer. Let's say his fruits drop down and they all fall, in the yard. Malake loy yad al yad va'aycha. You can go ahead and pick up one and eat it, and that's how you should collect it. You shouldn't go ahead and grab a basket and collect them off loy l'seicha kupa or a box. In order that you should not go ahead and once again do as he does uta the chol as he does during the week. Now comes the next machlokes we see in the case. What's
the issur though? And that's not me'amer, isn't it?
So the machlokes b'shayim as to what this is, right? So it's not clear. So some want to say it's clearly only the rabbanan of uvda the chol, right? That would be the way I would lean, only because the previous case, right? We talked about doing schita and then not gathering oil, and the oil is because uvda the chol, and then it leads into this brisa which l'chari has no shaykhus, right? Others want to learn that perhaps it could be I think the Rambam right, learns that this is actually a derabanan of gathering, because you're going ahead and you're placing the basket, and that is really a derabanan of ma'amer. So as machlokes rishonim, I think it's one of the footnotes. I didn't turn the page. Number 13. If you have those are there, it's called.
I have a regular.
Yeah. So there's machlokes is. Yeah, right. Some actually learning even was better. That's why you should pick up one at a time and do it, and not select the ones they want. It's better. But I think the Rambam, right? The Rambam learns as ma'amer, right? The Rambam is the one who says ma'amer, so that was his. So, but it is machlokes b'shayim as to what this derabanan is. Fine. So let's see the Gemara. Now we say ein seichtin es aperos. You can't go ahead and squeeze fruits. Schita is a taloda of dash. And one is, so in this case, you can't go ahead and squeeze fruit. Now, the question is, if the fruit comes out on its own. So the Chum say fruit is always asur, because if we allow you to go ahead and drink the juice that comes out on its own, you might come ahead and do more squeezing. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it depends. It depends what the fruits they were there for. If the fruits were there for making juice later on, then yes, I agree with you. But however, the fruits were there for eating, so then it's shalom baratzon of the owner, and therefore he's not going to go ahead and squeeze more because he didn't want them in the first place. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Rabbi Yehuda would agree that it's always usher when it comes to the oil from olives and the grape juice. My time, what's the reason? Since all olives and grapes are really fit for squeezing, therefore we say his mind is on it, and therefore it's like it was baratzon, and therefore it should be usher. V'ula amar, V'ula amar Rav Chalachaya Rabbi Yehuda. So says, right? So says Ula. So Ula Amar Rav Chalukay Rabbi Yehuda Afbezeisim Vanavim. No, Rabbi Yehuda even argued in this case, even in olives and olives and grapes, right? If he didn't want in the first place, then it's we say that it's mutter because he's not going to go ahead and do more schita because he didn't want in the first place. Rabbi Yechon Amar Halach Rabbi Yehuda b'shar peiros. Rabbi Yechon says halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda when it comes to other fruits. When other fruits, it depends why he had it, right? If he had apples there, so it depends why he had the apples. If the apples was for making apple juice, and that which is usher. But if not, it's mutter. But when it comes to olives and grapes, then the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that is always usher. And Amar Rabba, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Maida Haya Rabbi Yehuda Chamim b'Zeis Anavim. That says, so says Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, that Rabbi Yehuda agreed with the Chachamim in the case of olives and grapes. And the Chachamim agreed with Rabbi Yehuda with other fruits. So if that's the case, Amar Lei Rabbi Yirmiyah le Rabbi Abba, El my pligi. Then what's the machlekes, right? There's only two categories, right? There's the standard fruits, and there's olives and grapes. So if olives and grapes is always usher, and the standard fruit is always like Rabbi Yehuda, where it depends why he has it. So where are they arguing if they agree to the other one? So Amalei, the Chetishrat, go ahead and learn, you'll see. So Amar Rav Nachman, so look into this sugya. So Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Yitzchak, Mistavra, Betutim, V'rimayim Pligi. The machlekes is by tutim, right? We normally define it as, I guess, tutzad is like a strawberry, right? So some sort of berries and pomegranates, right? Berries and pomegranates. That is the machlekes. Pligi. Titani it says Zeisim Shemashach Mehen Shemen Vanavim Shemashach Mehen Yayin. If you have olives and from them comes oil, or grapes and comes wine, Vechnisan, and you're storing them, Bein la'oichel, bein la'mashkin, whether you're storing them for eating or you're storing the grapes and olives for making wine or oil in the future, right? Anything that comes out from them even on its own is aser. That is like the shita of the Chachamim from our Mishnah. If you have berries that comes to them, juice, right, or pomegranate, or I guess also wine, I guess that comes from pomegranate, right? And that if he was gathering them, if he was for eating purposes, that which comes out for them is mutter because he's not going to go ahead and squeeze more because he wanted to eat from them in the first place and not get juice from them. And lamashkin, but if he was storing them to make liquids later on, then it's aser. Excuse me, lamashkin ulastam. Right, mashkin and stam. In other words, if he had no intentions, he just stam had him in his house. Hayayitzim and aser. Divi Rabbi Yehuda. Right, so he's a mashkin and stam. Right, so we're introducing a new case. There's one intentions for eating, another intentions for making liquids. The other one's just stam. He has them in his house. Oh, he's walked by a tree that was hefker. He saw pomegranates that were good, and he brought them in the house. He never had intentions whether to eat from them or to make wine from them. That is just like he was taking them to go ahead and make a juice from them, and therefore they're usher, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Right? Whether it's for eating and whether there was for drinking, and even for sure also stam, usher. It's always usher. Fine. So that was the machlokes there. Now, the Gemara is going to ask, V'saber Rabbi Yehuda stam usher. Now we're going to look right now at one issue, right? One issue is, right, the case of stam, right? The case of stam is when the guy had no intentions of why he was saving the pomegranates and or the berries. Now, and we say that is just like he was keeping them for the liquids, and it makes it usher. So the Gemara asks, V'savar Rabbi Yehuda stam usher is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, stam is usher. But today we learn in the Mishnah. So now this Mishnah we're actually going to start all the way from left field, and it's going to bring it back towards the end. Right. So now, just as an introduction to this next part, so we talk about in terms of making things tummy. Right. In order to make something tummy, it has to be it has to have hechshel tuma. It has to come in contact. Let's say food, in order for it to become tamei, it has to come in contact with the liquid, right? There are 7 liquids: water, dew, milk, honey, blood. These are some of the liquids, right? That if the liquid comes in contact with it, it's now susceptible to tumah. It doesn't make it tamei just because water touches something or milk touches something. Doesn't make it tamei. It just means that something which is tamei touches it, it now becomes tamei. Now, right? You have to moisten it. So now we learn in the Mishnah, chalav isha metami l'ratzon shalol l'ratzon. The milk of a woman, right? The milk of a woman, right, as opposed to an animal, right? The milk from an animal. So the milk from a mother, right, is metame. That milk, if it comes out of a woman, right, whether it's l'ratzon shalol l'ratzon, whether she wanted the milk to come out or not, right? So he said, "V'terachal isha metame l'ratzon shalol l'ratzon." It's always metame. However, chalav behema, when it comes to the milk of an animal, eina metame yel l'ratzon. It's only time it's called a liquid, right, or a beverage, or more extended, a mashke, right, is when it's baratzon. If it's shaloi baratzon, right, for instance, the owner of the animal does not, it ties up the udders so the milk doesn't come out and some of it comes out, that is not called a mashke. That is not metame, all right? So, chalav behema, eina metame el l'ratzon, only if the owner wanted to come out. So, and Amar Rabbi Kiva says Rabbi Kiva on that. Once again, nothing to do with what we're talking about yet. As I mentioned, we're only going to bring it in at the end. And Amar Rabbi Kiva, Kava Chaimer. What do you mean it should be a Kava Chaimer? That milk of an animal should always be matame from a mother. Why? Kava Chaimer. The milk from a woman is only good for babies for babies to consume. And nevertheless, the time of the Ratzon Shalom Ratzon, it's matame whether the mother wants the milk to come out or not. So chalav habehema shemiyucha bein l'ktana b'gdolim, but the milk of animals which are drank, right, both by adults and babies, right. So eino din sheitam bein l'ratzon bein shel. Certainly, it's considered to be a mashke, right? It's drunk. More people drink it, not just babies, even adults drink, right, milk from an animal, right? So eino din sheitam bein l'ratzon bein shel. So therefore, for sure, should be matame. So Amar he said, no, in tamei chalav isha shalol l'ratzon. You can't compare the two. Why? Because if you say that the milk of a woman shalol l'ratzon, right? Why is the shalol? Why even if a milk comes out of a woman that's matame? Why? Because you see a woman that we're machmir. Why shadam megavasa tame, right? So because blood of a wound, now any blood from a human is matame. Any blood of a human is matame, is a hechshel tuma, does make something susceptible to tuma. Even if it's someone cuts themselves. If you cut yourself, that blood is considered to be a mashka. As opposed to an animal, right? Any blood from an animal, only dam shchita by an animal is considered to be matame, but not regular if an animal, gets a cut. So therefore, since by human, if you get a regular cut, so therefore, and that's matame, so too, milk that comes out of a woman, even shalom baratzon is matame, right? Shadam is matame. So you're telling me that the milk of an animal should be tamei shalol l'ratzon shadam. So why should the what's it called? So why should we say that milk that comes out of an animal shalol l'ratzon, right, should be matame? We see the blood of an animal, right, a wound of blood from a wound of an animal is not matame. So why should milk shalol l'ratzon be matame? So Rabbi Kiva says, no, machmerani b'cholav mibadam sha'acholi refuah tami v'amayk is refuah tar. So no, we could say that maybe it's different. Maybe we're more machmer by milk, because by milk we say that if one goes ahead and he milks an animal for refuah, so therefore that milk, if you did it basically to make the animal feel better, right? Maybe the animal has too much milk and you have to go ahead and remove the milk, not because you wanted the milk, but because you want to make the animal feel better. So that milk is still called a mashka. That milk is still matame, as opposed to if you want the animal to feel better and your maki's dam, you bloodlet, that blood is not considered to be matame. So maybe we're more machmer on milk. Maybe milk should even be shalom baratzon when it comes to animals and not. Some are low. So he says to him, no. Now we come back to the point. Now we're going to beginning of the point where we brought this whole thing in. So Sali Zaysiv and Avim Yachichu. So they said to them, no, let baskets of olives and grapes prove you. Shamashkim hayetzi mehen. So if you have liquids that come on their own from olives and grapes, right, which is similar to what we've been discussing until now, right? So l'ratzon tameim, if it's l'ratzon, if the owner wants it, l'ratzon, which sounds like the guy kept it for liquids, then tameim, shelo l'ratzon taharim. But if he did it, if it was against his will, then it's tahor. So we see if it comes out against its will, it's tahor. It's not considered to be a juice. So my love, isn't that to mean that when it says l'ratzon, it means that it's good for him. He wants the oil and he wants the grape juice. However, shelo l'ratzon, but we see shelo l'ratzon when he didn't want it is just not that he necessarily didn't want it. It just he didn't care, right? His stomach, right? He had no thoughts on it, and that's not called ratzon. So it's the opposite, right? So we see that stomach is in the category of shelo l'ratzon. And now, if that was said over there, and now we see from that Bryce that machlokes over there between Rabbi Kiva and the Rabbanan was discussing the juices and the oils that come from grapes and olives. That those are really always prepared. Those are b'nei schita for the purposes of right. The best way to eat a grape is by drinking wine, and the best way to use an olive is the oil. So over there, the b'nei schita shelo l'ratzon lo klum. If over there, shelo l'ratzon lo klum. So tutim v'ramayin the la b'nei schita lo kol shkein. Certainly, when it comes to berries and pomegranates, certainly that if it's stam, then it should be shelo. It's like shelo l'ratzon. It's like he didn't want it, and therefore he didn't want it. Shein mutter. So you can't categorize stam as a case of shelo l'ratzon. So the Gemara answers no. Lo l'ratzon b'stam. Right? It says no. The Gemara says no. That's different. When it says l'ratzon, is really his stomach, right? And shelo l'ratzon the gali daita. Now, which it says shelo l'ratzon doesn't mean that shelo l'ratzon means he didn't actually want it. It means no. If he was stam, it was like he wanted it. That's called b'ratzon, right? Shelo l'ratzon over there was the case of where he says di omar lo nichli, I don't want it. So if he said lo nichli, that's the case when it's mutter. But if it's stama, maybe you can say that stama is just like a case of l'ratzon. Or viboy sema shani salizesiv. Now we make it say baskets of olives and grapes are different. The reason why, if it's shelo l'ratzon, it's not matami, is what? Since he put in baskets, right? Something which doesn't contain any liquids that would like ooze from them. So therefore, you see it clearly that the guy didn't want the oil or the yayin to come out. And since he didn't want it to come out, it's obvious shelo l'ratzon, and therefore it's obvious that would not be matame, and therefore bringing it back to our case, it's obvious that those things would not be considered to be something which was wanted by the owner, and therefore maybe in such a case you'd even say that it would be mutter to have it on Shabbos. And we'll stop over here at the bottom. So Mr. Shem, tomorrow regular time 7:15. Everyone have a wonderful day. Shkoyach.
Thank you. Have a